Yeah, okay. 2, this order may be amended or supplemented by the chairperson at any time if, in his opinion, that is necessary to ensure the protection of Colonel Naidu or any other person in connection with Colonel Naidu's evidence or to ensure fairness to any implicated person. 3, nothing in this order precludes the granting by the chairperson of an order, mero motu, or on application by a person who is or may be implicated by the evidence of Colonel Naidu, allowing that person to have sight of Colonel Naidu or being shown a photograph of him which has been approved by the chairperson for the purpose. 4, this order does not derogate from the order made on 17 September 2019 as required by Section 18 of the Act, prohibiting publication of any information, including any drawing, picture, illustration, painting, photograph, whether produced through or by means of computer software on a screen or a computer printout, as contemplated in the Films and Publications Act 1996, Act 65 of 1996, or not, pamphlet, poster, or other printed matter which may disclose 4.1, the place of safety or location where Colonel Naidu is or has been under protection or where he has been relocated in terms of the Act, 4.2, the circumstances relating to his protection, 4.3, the identity of any other protected person and the place of safety or location where such person is being protected, or 4.4, Colonel Naidu's relocation or change of identity. That is the order that I make in that matter. And once the order has been printed, it should be disseminated to all media houses and made available to the public.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'll be excused.
You are excused. Thank you. We can then resume the evidence relating to the evidence of Mr. Kuba. Ms. Wenzel, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Kuba, before the lunch adjournment, we were dealing with the meeting that you had with General Nklemeza at your home during October 2013, which is dealt with from pages 14 and 15 of your statement.
Yes, he said he gave him some drinks, and after that, General Nklemeza left his house. Is that right? Is that right? He left your house after you had given him drinks and so on.
That's correct. But I think there is a part that I did not clearly cover there.
Yes.
Because when he mentioned about General Mudluli, for me was a surprise. Because when I worked with Colonel Mokangwe, he never made mention of General Mudluli. I worked with him for a very long time, but he never made even an indication of anything relating to Mudluli. Now, that gave me a concern, but what I wanted to indicate is that he said to me that my report was the one which was holding back his move to the Hawks. And as I indicated, I could not really take him serious because I just listened to him, but I did not really take him serious, but I put it in my mind. Thank you.
Did you think he was kind of exaggerating the situation, namely Did you think that, well, if there was to be a vacancy in the Hawks, the position would be advertised and different people would apply? This thing of him saying your report, the delay in your report was holding him back, was just some exaggeration on his part of the position?
No, I did not really take it as an exaggeration, but I think from the background that he told me that he was going to move to IPID and later came and say the political principals are no longer wanting him to go to IPID by the Hawks. So it made me not to, I just felt that I should not really entertain what he was saying.
But was that because you had a feeling that if things were to happen the way he was saying, it wouldn't be, they would not be happening the right way, or
No.
is it because you didn't believe him?
No, I just felt also that the process that it will take to get rid of Dramad would
Yes.
not really be an easy one.
Would not be an easy one.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. When he said that his political principles no longer wanted him to go to IPET, but wanted him to go to the Hawks, who did you understand him to refer to?
To tell you the honest fact, I had a challenge. I could not really put an individual there because he never said a political principal. He said principals.
Oh, I thought he said political principle.
No.
Or he didn't put it that way?
No.
Oh, what did he say?
He talked about political principles. That they
Oh, I
were-
thought that was what I said. Ms. Wenzel, did you hear the same thing?
Yes, I think that what he's saying is it's, the one is singular and the other is plural.
Yes.
Oh, is that this distinction
Yes,
you are
that is the
making? Oh, no,
distinction.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
So he said his political principle,
Yeah.
one, singular.
No.
Plural.
He was referring.
Oh, I thought I was using plural. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. But what was your understanding of who he was referring to?
I could not place the face chairperson, but I just thought probably if we talk about policing, it would be the minister.
Okay, all right. Continue.
In paragraph 51 of your statement, you said that you were battling to get hold of General Labia, and that General Inhlimeza assisted you in doing that. You said you wanted to get hold of him because he was one of the people who had signed the success report. What is a success report? What were you referring to there?
A success report in this situation, it's a one-pager report where the writer indicated that he arrested a specific individual on this particular day and what happened to the people.
And what was that concerning?
It was concerning the Zimbabwean nationals.
And so the arrest of the Zimbabwean nationals.
That's correct.
And was there any success report by Dramat?
No.
Now, after you'd given General Inhlimeza some refreshments and he left your house, how did you feel?
I was afraid. That's why I went to my wife and indicated that I do not know what I got myself into. Because at that time, I knew General Modlori to be on suspension. And it worried me that he took interest on matters when he is outside. So, and also his involvement in a lot of cases like the politically charged issues. For example, there was an issue about the recordings. By that time, it was on the media that there was a recording of the president or something, but it related to him, that he gave the president something. So I had a little bit of information of what was happening with Richard Mdluli.
And so,
I'm sorry, Ms.
Yes.
Wenzel. Earlier on, I had wanted to ask you something and I forgot. When you said that, you said that you mentioned somebody's name, and you said when you worked with him, he never mentioned General Mdluli. You remember when you said that?
That's correct.
Yeah, what was the name again of the person
It's
you talked
Colonel
about?
Mukangwe.
Yeah, who was he in the context of what General Ntlemeza has said? Because I think you were saying that because General Ntlemeza said, General Mdluli said, if you see a suspicious car following you, you should activate General Ntlemeza.
Colonel Mukangwe, I knew him to be a member of CI, Crime
That is
Intelligence.
crime intelligence,
Crime
yeah,
Intelligence.
which
When-
was under General Mdluli at the time.
It was under General Mdluli. By that time, he was on suspension, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also given the fact that I worked on the rendition case with Colonel Mukangwe, I would have expected that he would talk about General Mdluli, but he never mentioned him.
I'm trying to understand why your thought of him is relevant.
The thought of him is relevant in this way, because I would have expected that General Mdluli will be more closer to CI individuals rather than General Ntlemeza.
Oh,
And that
okay.
CI person was doing investigation with me.
Oh, so in other words, you would have expected that, you said it's Mukangwe,
Yeah, Colonel Mukangwe.
Colonel Mukangwe,
That's correct.
maybe would have been told by General Mdluli to tell you that if you see a suspicious car following you, you must activate him. Or at least you would have expected that at some stage or another he would have mentioned General Mdluli, but he never.
That's correct.
And you were wondering why General Mdluli was giving a message to General Ntlemeza about your protection in circumstances where General Ntlemeza was not even at crime intelligence.
That's correct.
That's what is in your mind. Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
so when you said you started to feel afraid, what did you do?
I then approached the then acting executive director, Ms. Kukimbeki, and I requested that I be removed from the team. But when I had discussion with her, I never spoke about the meeting that I had with
General
General
Ntlemeza.
Ntlemeza. I only highlighted the issue of leaks that I was not happy. And, but the real core was the meeting that I had.
With General Ntlemeza.
That's correct. The issue of the leaks was also part of that, but the main issue there was when I heard about General Mdluli.
Why did you not consider it appropriate to tell Ms. Mbeki about the main issue?
The problem was, it was very, very difficult to read Ms. Mbeki. It was very, very difficult. To such an extent that I could not really understand whether she supports the investigation, whether she's against the investigation. Because if then she was really, really, really in support of me going after these people like General Dramat and others, why did she query my presence in head office? When, and she said, I will cancel your accommodation, what are you doing here? So for Ms. Mbeki, even today, I cannot really tell where she stood.
Where she stood on this issue of the rendition.
That's correct.
Yes. So you you chose to be circumspect about what you told her.
That's correct.
Yes, okay.
Now, after this meeting in October 2013, did you have any further meetings with General Ntlhameza?
Well, I'm not sure that he has finished telling us about the discussion between himself and Ms. Mbeki.
Oh, yes.
I think he
Chair.
hasn't.
No, he hasn't, you're correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Just complete your conversation with Ms. Mbeki.
Yeah, when I told her that I want to be removed from the team, she refused and said, there is no one who can be able to do this, and the minister will not be happy about this decision for you to leave this investigation.
Had you met the minister personally? Did you know each other quite well? Why would he particularly not be happy if you were moved away from this investigation?
I interpreted that from the fact that the minister referred this case. Not necessarily that I knew the minister. I never had any interaction with the minister personally.
So your interpretation of what Ms. Mbeki was saying was not that the minister would not want you as a person to be moved out of the investigation, but that he might not like the idea that now somebody else must take over.
For me,
In other words, did you think that as far as Ms. Mbeki was concerned, she thought that the minister wouldn't be happy with the changing of lead investigators, not necessarily that he wanted you to be the person doing the investigation as such?
that one, Chairperson, it's very difficult to say on the basis that by that time, I had already probably sent numerous reports, progress report. What I thought was probably because of the good work I was doing, probably he was happy with what I was doing. But also the second point that you indicated, which means the change of investigator, because any change in the investigation team destabilizes the case itself.
Okay, thank you.
After this, did you have cause to meet General Ntlhameza again?
Or maybe to finish, did you then accept that you just had to continue with the investigation when you were told that there's nobody else who can take over and the minister would not be happy?
Yeah, I accepted that, most especially if the name of a political principle is mentioned, you feel more obligation to help the country. And I felt that I need to continue.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. After this meeting in October 2013, did you have a further meeting with General Ntlhameza?
I had a last meeting with him, but that was December 2014. It was on the 6th.
Yes, and why did you have that meeting? And
He
where
had-
did you have it?
He had called me and he said I should meet with him at Wimpy. He had something to talk to me about. I went to the restaurant, and when I arrived, he was already seated inside. When I sat down, he said he wanted to tell me the good news. And he said there was going to be a hit on Dramat. I must watch television in the coming weeks. I took the information, as I always did, just to listen to him. And then, after some, I don't know how many weeks had already passed, but what he told me came to pass. When I saw on television that General Dramad had been suspended, and then he was appointed to act in his position.
Now, when you met with him at Wimpy, at the Wimpy, is it what, Psychiat Center?
Yeah.
When you met him there, how long after you had sent your first report was it? How much time had lapsed since you're sending the first report?
It will be almost 10 to 11 months. And probably I need to add and say, after I sent the first report, the contact just died down. He never contacted me as regularly as he used to be.
So are you saying that when you met him at the Wimpy Center, you had sent your first report to the NPA about 10 or 11 months before?
The first report, it was 10 to 11, but the second report, because was sent in March, this meeting was after even the second report.
Or this meeting was after even the second report?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. How soon after, or how long after the second report, if you are able to remember, more or less?
I'll not be able to calculate out of my head,
Yes,
but
yes.
it took place, the second report was in March,
Yes, okay.
and the meeting was in December.
Oh, 2014. Oh, so the first report you would have sent in 2013, is that right?
The first report was in January 2014.
Oh, and then the second report in March.
Yeah.
Oh, so it took quite some months before he had good news to tell you.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, yes.
Thank you. Chair, the first report.
So I'm sorry, so when he said, so the good news that he was telling you about, was it that there was going to be a hit on Dramad, or he said his move to the Hawks had arrived? Or is that what he said? Or how did he put it?
That part of him moving to the Hawks, I already knew, and he never labored on that in discussion. I knew exactly when he said there was going to be a hit, and he said it's good news, because he told me that my report is the one that is withholding his move to the Hawks.
But how did you know that, before that meeting, how did you know that his move to the Hawks had arrived? I'm taking this from your statement in paragraph 54, where you say, I found General Ntlemeza seated inside. He said that his time to move to move to the Hawks had arrived. But you say that even before that, you knew about his move to the Hawks. Are you referring simply to the statement he had made to you earlier, to the effect that your report was what was delaying his move to the Hawks? Is that what you are basing that on? Or did you hear something else about his move to the Hawks?
That's correct. The earlier meeting we had, that is when he said he needed to move to the Hawks. That is the meeting that was held, I think, around October. That is 2013. Now, in 2014, that is when he told me about the hit as a good news. Even though he talked about the issue of his move, he was not really
Excited about that?
Yeah, the main issue was the hit on
Or
Dramad.
what he was excited about was the hit?
That's correct.
Okay. But you understood that the hit would open the door to him to go to the Hawks?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
So he said you must watch the news on TV in the coming weeks.
That's correct.
Yes. Continue.
And just so that we continue with the statement, you said you did watch the news, and you say...
Did you see the hit? You watched the news, and did you see the hit?
Yeah, I don't know whether I can use this term, whether it was a hit.
Well, but at least, did you see something that you interpreted to be the hit that he was referring to?
Yes.
Or you saw something, you didn't know if it was the hit that he was referring to, but later on you heard from him that it was the hit, or...
I saw something happen, and I
Yes.
thought it's the hit that he spoke about.
Yes, tell me about what you saw.
There was an issue about the suspension of General Dramat, and that he was appointed to act in that position. So it happened exactly as he said.
Oh, okay. So the TV, the news show, revealed that the General Dramat was suspended and that General Tlameza was going to act in his position.
That's correct.
Okay, was the announcement on simultaneous of the two, or you don't really know? Can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
it would have been close to each other.
It had been close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you think after this?
After that,
did he phone you? I'm sorry. Don't forget what you want to say. Did he maybe phone you after the hit happened on the news to say, did you see the hit?
no, he gave me a call once while he was working that we need to meet,
Yes.
but the meeting never materialized.
That is now, was that when he was already acting in General Dramat's position?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry I interrupted you while you were responding to a question that Ms. Wenzel put to you.
After this, and you then see the television, and it's happened exactly as he had said, what did you think?
I started, it started to confirm the challenges that I had with the statement of Madilonga and the entire issue of rendition. It really, really troubled me, but it was something that I could not do anything about it. The statement of Madilonga, I had a number of issues with that statement. The first, I had already indicated yesterday that he had a statement that he has signed which was not commissioned, and that is where he indicated that nothing went wrong. Those people were just deported correctly. Now, that was the first challenge. And the second statement where he changed his version and also indicated that he was forced to make that statement, the first one. Now, the other issue was the issue that I also had the documents relating to Zimbabwean authority thanking crime intelligence for the good work done when they assisted them in getting hold of their nationals. That document made no mention of Dramat. In fact, is directed to crime intelligence. And I felt if then Dramat was the pioneer of this thing, they were supposed to have written to him directly. So his name was not mentioned. That letter, it was an official letter on the basis that it ended up in the hands of the Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng, Commissioner Petrus, and he wrote an attachment back to Crime Intelligence thanking them for the good work done. So there were also issues of the analysis of statement that I did, which indicated that he was not truthful with the information. And the other issue is that...
That's Matilonga.
That's correct.
Yes, okay.
There was also an issue of the call which was made at Beitbridge, because in his statement it was put in such a way that as if it indicated that he Dramat is the one who opened way for their deportation. But the truth of the matter is that that call was made on the 4th, and the actual rendition of this Zimbabwean national took place on the 8th. And the other issue was the level of interference that I had in the investigation itself. It really strengthened my doubt whether this thing was done in good faith. I'm not saying that that rendition never took place. I'm just saying, was it done then? I mean, the whole investigation, the setup, and when it started, was it done in good faith?
Are you raising that question because of the fact that the Zimbabwean authorities directed their letter of appreciation to crime intelligence, and yet people who were being investigated in relation to the rendition issue were people who were in the Hawks? And you're asking the question, why would the letter be directed to crime intelligence if the people were really, the masterminds were in the Hawks? Why was it not directed to the Hawks?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Kuba, could you please turn to page 52? It's Annexure 5 in the bundle in front of you. Is that the letter that you are referring to?
Beg your pardon, page?
Page 52.
Page 52 on?
Yes.
Page 52 is a letter with the heading or letterhead Zimbabwe Republic Police.
And just look at the page
Okay.
numbers
Remember
on the top right-hand side.
Yes. Let me check.
Remember when I said when she mentions the page, she won't mention 0 before 52.
That's correct, Chairperson? Yes, that's the one.
Okay. Well, Ms. Wenzel, you might wish to read into the record some relevant parts of it or the whole of it.
Yes, I intend to do so. If you have a look at the letter, it's dated the 14th of March 2001 to the commander.
2011.
11, I beg your pardon. And addressed to Commander Criminal Investigations Unit, South Africa Police Service, Pretoria, and it's marked for the attention of Colonel Intenteni. Is that right?
That's correct.
The heading of the letter is Letter of Appreciation of Good Work Performed by Your Intelligence Officers. And then the officers are named. It says, I wish to express my profound gratitude in the exemplary professionalism, brevity, and dedication to duty that was exhibited by your above-mentioned operatives. Our Criminal Investigation Department, Bulawayo, was investigating a case of murder involving a senior police officer of the Zimbabwean Republic Police, the late Chief Superintendent Chatikopo, who was killed in Bulawayo on the 18th of September 2010 by the accused Gordon Dube, Johannes Nioni, and 3 others. Soon after committing the offence, the 2 mentioned accused persons fled Zimbabwe and sought refuge in Diepsloot Squatter Camp, Johannesburg, in the Republic of South Africa. We passed on information to the above-mentioned officers regarding the 2 accused persons, who reacted swiftly, managed to arrest the 2 fugitives, and recovered a CZ pistol that was taken from the deceased police officer in Zimbabwe. During the period 21st February to 1st March 2011, the same team assisted me and my team when I was conducting some investigations in the Republic of South Africa. I really enjoyed the manner and fashion the above-mentioned officers aligned themselves to police work despite being junior officers. May your respective...
Hang on, Ms. Wenzel. Okay, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes for the technicians to attend to that problem. We adjourn. Yes, let's proceed. I think, I don't know if you took note of where you were when the problem started. Okay. Your microphone.
We got up to page 53 of the bundle. Towards the end of the letter, it says, "May your respected office convey my appreciation to all of them. I also wish to thank you and Captain Busang for the support rendered to me and my team during the visit. Best regards, E. Mkodza, Assistant Commissioner, CID Coordinator, Bulawayo, Matabeleland North and South Provinces." Is that the letter you were referring to? Mr. Kuba? Is that the letter that you were referring to?
That's correct.
And if you have a look at what is called annexures B, C, D onwards, from pages 54 through to 58, with the first letter addressed to the Provincial Commissioner, SA Police Service, Gauteng, on the 24th of March 2011, commendation for good work performed by members of crime intelligence. Then it says, attached here with a minute, dated the 14th of March 2011, from CID Provincial Headquarters, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, for your information. The members involved are stationed at Pretoria Central Crime Intelligence Station. It would be appreciated if the members can be called to your office to congratulate them for the good work that was done. And following that, you will see that letters of appreciation were then sent to these members under a heading, Letter of Appreciation, Employees of Pretoria Central CIG, and it says, apprehending wanted criminals who fled from Zimbabwe after murdering Zimbabwean police chief. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if we can go back to the misgivings you said you started to have about Colonel Madilongwe's statement, which you deal with on pages 16 and 17 of your statement. You said earlier that you referred again to the two statements that he had given. Could you just clarify one thing? In the first statement, which you testified to yesterday was not commissioned, did that refer in any way to General Dramat?
No.
And the second statement that was commissioned, did that one refer to General Dramat?
Yes.
And what were you told by Colonel Madilongwe was the reason for the discrepancy? Did you interrogate him on this?
I asked him about the statement, and he said he was forced to make the first one, which means he implied that the first one was incorrect. The correct one was the second one.
And what did you think about that?
For me, it did not make sense, because if he was really forced to not to implicate Dramat in the first one, they would have had it commissioned so that he could not have an opportunity to deviate from that version. However, when I drew that statement, and when I also showed him the copy of that statement, it was not commissioned.
Did you say who forced him to do the first one?
He did not indicate the name, but he said he received a call and was told what to say.
In regard to the whole statement?
in terms of the statement, in terms of the whole statement, which, according to him, is not what happened.
So in other words, he was saying the whole first statement was wrong.
That's correct.
Okay.
You also said that your investigation of the telephone records indicated that the telephone call to Dramat was on the 4th, whereas the rendition took place on the 8th. Do you remember which month that was?
It was November 2010. The call was made on the 4th of November 2010, whereas the actual rendition took place on the 8th of November 2010.
And what conclusions did you draw from that?
My challenge with that was that these are two different days. It took almost 4 days before those people could be taken across. It would have made sense if that call was made at a time when these people were being renditioned.
What do you mean by renditioned?
To be deported illegally, to be handed over to the Zimbabwean national. If he had said on the 8th, when Maluleke came, Captain Maluleke, whom I'm referring as captain, but in my statement mostly it's Colonel.
Why is that?
It's simply because when the act was committed, he was captain, and when I obtained statements, which reflect that it's captain. But during the time of investigation, he was promoted. Before investigation, he became a colonel.
Okay. So just explain this discrepancy between the 4th of November 2010 and the 8th of November 2010. Sorry, I interrupted you.
For me, it would have made sense if that call was made when Captain Maluleke was at the border with this Zimbabwean national. And then General Dramat called Colonel Madilonga and say, please, my people want to take those people across. It would have made sense. But I could not make the connection because I did not know what they talk about, and the deportation or the rendition day was different from the day of the call.
And if you could just remind the chair, what did Colonel Madilongwe say happened with regarding this call on the 4th of November 2010 involving General Dramat?
He said he saw the black Triton's vehicle, Mitsubishi, and then he approached the people, and they told him that they want to see General Dramat. He said he contacted his superiors, starting with the first one, I think that was almost the junior, and then the immediate commander told him that you need to contact Brigadier Makushu, who was the superior to her. And when he did that, he said, Brigadier Makushu said, I was never contacted by General Dramat, that there are people who are coming in the country. So you have to phone General Dramat yourself. And that is confirmed in their statement.
And did you have cause to analyze cell phone records as to confirm this or not?
Yes, I did check the cell phone records, but what I did, I could not get, because he said he used a landline, but I analyzed the General Dramat's cell phone record, and I could confirm that there was a call that was made on the 4th. But it lasted very short. I can't remember the minutes now.
You can just address your answers to the chair. to try and remember.
So I can't remember the exact duration of that call, but there was a call.
And having regard to these issues that you say concerned you, what did you think may have happened? What conclusions did you draw?
You know, after everything, I could see that it seems as the whole investigation was aimed at getting rid of General Dramat. When I put the pieces of the puzzle in terms of the wrong things that took place, in terms of the statement of Colonel Madilonga, in terms of the pressure was put under, I just realized that it seems as the ultimate goal was to get rid of General Dramat.
You say in paragraph 59 of your statement that you decided to send Colonel Madilonga's statement for analysis. You mentioned this yesterday. Could you just deal with that again?
Where about in the statement are you now?
Paragraph 59, page 19, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, I did send the statement of Colonel Madilonga for analysis, and its only statement in the docket that I had challenges with. And she did not take time, the expert. She came back to me and she sent an email together with an attachment of how she analyzed the statement. And then she indicated that the statement of Madilonga was not a truthful reflection of what happened. It for some reason confirmed my suspicion. And I still remember, because I slightly bounds it with advocate, just in passing, and he kind of really indicated...
Is that Advocate Musing?
That's correct.
Okay.
And he said to me, what is statement analysis? The discussion took very, very short. He just said, if the witness is not really telling the truth, it can be subjected to cross-examination. You know, and probably I just got the sense that he was not really getting the sense of what I was talking about.
This statement analysis, if you have a regard to your supplementary affidavit, there's an annexure at page 380. It'll be right at the end of the bundle, if you can have a look at that, please.
That's correct.
Is this the email that you're referring to?
That is the email.
And it says, attached is the statement of Madilonga. I did a statement analysis scan on it, and this statement is not a truthful reflection of what happened. We can discuss it later today when I phone you. If you could then have regard to page 60.
There.
Is this the statement and the analysis?
That's correct.
And you will see in the statement that he says on page 60, halfway down, He says, before I was transferred, I was working at Brightbridge Police Station as a commander. My duties included crime prevention, liaison with immigration officials and other police officials from other stations. Was he stationed at the border in Zimbabwe,
He was stationed at the border, South African side.
the South African side?
That's correct.
And is he saying that it is there that he saw the Zimbabwean officials who wanted to talk to Dramat?
That's correct.
That statement is not signed, or is it? That statement is not signed, is it? At page 60. Is that the one you are dealing with, Ms. Wenzel?
Yes, it is. Chair, my understanding is that what has happened is that the statement has been analyzed, so it's been copied word for word, and then the use of words is then analyzed, and you'll see with footnotes the expert's analysis as to what each aspect of the statement indicated to her to ultimately form a...
Yes, but am I right to say it is not signed?
Yes, this statement is not signed, but I don't believe that this is this actual statement itself.
Yes, is there a signed one?
There is a signed one.
Which is exactly the same except for the shading.
That's correct. So
Okay.
what happened when I sent a statement, she made it clear that I should not send, I need to send the soft copy, or she type the statement, because she does these things in the system. So I told her that the statement was typed by me before he could sign. So I sent her the soft copy.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Can we start now to deal with...
What is the legal status of that analysis?
I don't believe that there is a legal status of that analysis. I imagine it's very much the same as lie detector tests and voice stress tests.
Yes, and
They are just, I imagine, tools used by investigators to get a sense, do I trust this person or not? But we can address that.
yeah,
to the
I don't
witness.
think we need to go into details
No.
about if it's
No.
got no legal status, but to the extent that it may have influenced, the analysis may have influenced Mr. Kuba in any way, he can indicate what it is that influenced him. You understand that, Mr. Kuba? I'm saying that the analysis of this statement, the legal status of the analysis, I'm not sure about it, and Ms. Wenzel is not sure about it. And what that means is whether legally one can rely on that. But to the extent that it may have, the analysis may have influenced your thinking, then you may just indicate 1, 2, 3, or whatever features that influenced you.
The analysis, I was not really aware of its legal status. But
Yes.
what it helped me was to check what I was dealing with. And also to approach certain issues with caution. Now, in terms of the first report, this report was somehow not part of the docket. I did not file it.
This analysis,
The analysis, it was
Well-
not there.
it was not in the docket
That's correct.
before the first report, so it did not influence the first report.
That's correct.
Yes, okay. And did it any stage, get into the docket even after the first report?
That's correct. When I filed other evidence,
Yes.
I included it.
Okay, okay. And would it have influenced the second report as far as you are concerned? Because I know there were 3 people who signed.
Not necessarily. It was mentioned,
Yes.
but it did not have such an impact.
It didn't have a significant
It
impact.
didn't have the significant impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in your own mind, it could not be, you did not disregard it.
I did not disregard it.
Yeah, you took note of it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Before I go on to a new topic, the Chair asked, did you remember the first name of Mr. Moyo, who you referred to? Have you remembered since?
Yes.
And what do you remember his first name to be?
I think it's Bongani Moyo.
Bongani Moyo.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chair, if I can have an indication of how late you want to sit.
Oh, yes, let's talk about that. I think you may have indicated to me before that you think Colonel Naidu might take 2 days, is that right?
Yes.
Now, he was supposed to have started today, and therefore tomorrow would have been the second day.
Yes.
If he starts tomorrow, is he going to go into Monday?
Yes.
Or is that the plan, or is there another witness scheduled for Monday?
What I understand is
I think
that
next week was the week where certain implicated persons were supposed to be scheduled to give evidence, but I understand that there may have been certain challenges, but I'm going to be briefed later about it.
Yes, I also understand that there are some challenges and there may be space next week. I also understand from Ms. Norman that there are 2 witnesses who you would like her to lead next week. She had some challenges with the one witness would only be available on the Tuesday but not the Wednesday. But subject to the other issues around the calendar, which I'm not entirely sure have been settled, she said she wouldn't have a problem if Colonel Naidu testified on the Friday and the Monday. But
Yes.
I think that still is an issue that needs to be resolved with the legal team.
Okay, well, we'll finalize the issue of Monday tomorrow, but I think if it suits everybody, I'm prepared to sit longer, certainly up to 5, but maybe up to 6. From
Thank
your
you, Chair.
side, how does the situation look?
Chair, I think I will need a bit longer because I also need to canvass this worksman's report in some detail and having regard to your indication earlier this morning.
Yes,
and
but you are saying you are available to continue until 5,
Yes.
and if need be, until 6.
Yes, I could. What I might ask for, Chair, is just some time overnight
Yeah,
to be able to go through this worksman's report more carefully with the witness
yeah,
so that I
Maybe
can
tomorrow
lead him
morning.
properly on that.
so that we could start with him tomorrow morning just to finalize those aspects
Yes.
before we start with Colonel Naidu.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kuba, how is your situation? If we sit until 5 or maybe even until 6, would that be convenient to you, or would there be a problem?
It's fine with me.
It's fine with you. Okay, for now, let's go up to 5, and then at 5 o'clock, we will review the situation. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's continue.
I now want to deal, Mr. Kuba, in some detail with what is called your first report, your amended first report, and then your second report.
1 second, Ms. Windsor. All right, yes, continue.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm dealing now from paragraph 61 of your statement, page 19 of the bundle, just so that you have an idea. We know that the first report is dated the 22nd of January 2014, and we'll go there in a minute, but could you please tell the Chair under what circumstances that so-called first report was prepared?
Thank you. While I was investigating the case, I was preparing a report in a form of typing the statements. Now, some of these statements that I obtained where I got an opportunity to type them while interviewing the witness, instead of just evaluating and taking a certain part of that statement, I would copy it the way it is into the report. I will indicate the name of the witness and the category in which it's filed in the docket, and then I will leave the information there. So the report becomes so voluminous because of that. But there will be things that I change. For example, because the witness will say I, then because it's in a report, I will say he or she, but put exactly the same thing that the person said.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Now,
so you just change it and put in a third person.
yes, because it was a requirement that you summarize the statement in terms of our policy, which now has changed. So I would put that because I did not want to go into, a lot of work at the end of investigation. And at some times when I looked at the docket, it had almost 90-something statements. So it was not an easy thing to do at once. So I was just doing it gradually. Now, that report, I would update it, but I started to share it with the person who was guiding the investigation, Advocate Musing.
Just before you proceed, just now what you were saying about statements, was that in relation to the statements going into the docket, or was that what you was going to a report or different reports?
No, it was the statement going into the docket.
Oh, okay.
Then I will, if that statement is typed and then commissioned, what would happen is that the information that I have in the computer, I will copy the entire statement into the report.
Or to prepare the report?
To prepare the report.
Okay. So your report would consist to a very large extent of the same material that is of the contents of the various statements?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Then I started to share the statement, or the report, rather, with my partner, Colonel Mukango, and Advocate was guiding the investigation.
Yes. Just something basic. When you conduct an investigation such as this and you talk about a docket, in the context of IPET, would the docket have come from IPET? And when you submit the docket to the NPA, you actually submit the IPET dockets, as it were, to the NPA? Or would the NPA have their own docket and you just submit the contents of your docket to them, to their docket, and you remain with your docket?
It will be the same docket. When we uplift the docket from
the NPA,
No, from the SAPS.
Yes.
Because the investigation would have started by SAPS.
Yes.
They register the case, then they open a docket.
Yes.
When we go to uplift the docket, we will take that docket the
As
way
it
it is.
Yes.
And then we would either
Add statements to it.
add statement to it or put it inside IPI docket. By that time, I do not know whether we had IPI docket.
Oh, okay.
Because we had a challenge where when the DPP decide on that case and it had to be returned back, they will look at the station
Yes.
and say it's a station, and we end up not getting that docket.
Oh.
So we came with a decision to say, if then there is a docket, SAPS docket, we will take the cover of that docket and then put it in our docket. It will always remain part of our docket.
Yes. So that they know they must send it back to you, and you are the ones who will send it to the station.
That's correct.
Okay. So, but before that system, you worked with an SAPS docket. You would work with an SAPS docket that came from the SAPS, if the matter started with the SAPS.
That's correct. In fact, in this case, I took, because the docket was voluminous, I had to take the actual docket cover, cut it nicely, put it on the pocket of an ARC file. So they were having on the outside.
Yes.
But it was not IP
was
docket, it was SAPS.
liver arch files.
That's correct.
Oh, okay. And when you submitted the docket to the NPA, you were effectively submitting either a liver arch file or more than one liver arch files, but with the docket cover on the outside.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kuba, what was the purpose of compiling a report?
A report was a requirement of the department to say you need to simplify so that whenever a person, before he reads the docket, he may have to just browse through to say, where do I find this statement in the docket?
Yes.
Now, we were also required to make recommendation. They would say, you may not be legally qualified, but use your opinion and express your opinion in that recommendation report. And they would not want you to say, I recommend that you take a decision. They will say, evaluate yourself. They are not bound by that recommendation, but needed to express that because of 1, 2, 3, I recommend that this person be charged criminally. Now, that has currently changed. After we were charged, we no longer summarize the statement. We no longer recommend in terms of specifics. For us, just to say, these are the statements in the docket. It's A1, A2, A3, and we mention the name of these people. And then at the bottom there that we recommend that you take decision in this matter. Whether the docket may be almost 10 or 15 or 20 ARC files, the report may remain 2 pages.
That's because of the experience when the three of you were charged because of those 2 reports.
That's correct.
Yes. So in a way, charging you had a negative effect in the sense that the NPA now no longer has the benefit of your own analysis and views of what you think, even if they were not going to be bound by them.
That's correct.
You now just throw everything to them and say, effectively, you study the docket and make a decision.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, if we have regard to this first report, of the 22nd of January 2014. And if you have a look at Annexure 8, page 68, all the way through to page 102.
Did you say page 68?
Yes,
Up to what page?
102.
Okay.
Is that your first report?
That's correct.
Now, before we have a look at your recommendations in that report, did you submit this report to the NPA?
That's correct.
And who did you submit it to?
Advocate Musing.
And did you discuss this report or receive input on the report from Advocate Musing as to the content of the report?
That's correct.
Could you just give some detail with that regard, please?
Maybe just before that, we have been referring to this report as the first report, but was it your first report, or were there other reports before it? It's just that it's the first of two reports that are in issue.
There were a number of reports that I sent
Before this one?
before this one, because I would take the report to him, and sometimes when instead of him having to read the statement, I will just take the entire statement into that report, and he will read the report, we'll sit down with also Colonel Mokangwe, we discuss, and they would advise me in terms of what are the important issues that I need to highlight. And during that discussion, I noted that. It's just that I could not get some copies of the report where I think on some of them he would write with his pen to say, this is where I want you to highlight certain issues.
Is there anything that makes this so-called first report different from any of the earlier reports?
The earlier reports were slightly different because of the amount of evidence that was going in. But it was just a build-up. It was a build-up. That is what I can say the difference way.
Were the other earlier reports marked interim reports in any way, or was any term used to suggest that they were work in progress, or they were not final reports? Is there anything that either was written on them to suggest that, or was it clear, would it have been clear from anybody reading them that they were not final reports?
No, there was nothing that I could say that I put, unless if it was on the recommendation. I can't remember. But I think what was different from this one is that this one, I signed it.
Yes.
And the others, I will just produce them the way they are, the way.
Or the other ones were not signed?
No, they were not signed.
Yes. But are you able to say whether or not there was an understanding between yourself and Advocate Musing with regard to the earlier reports that they could not be final?
There was an understanding. And I think I need to say this, Chairperson, that what made me to be more comfortable and relaxed was the issue that I thought he was the one who was going to decide on the case. For me, it was just an issue of working together. And my...
You mean you thought he was the one who was going to make the decision whether to prosecute or not to prosecute?
That's correct.
Yes, okay.
And I trusted him because when you have an investigation guided by a prosecutor, you start to understand that the eye of looking at it is prosecution driven. So, and quite often I had been doing investigation for a long time, where sometimes I've learned in a hard way, where you would try to push to say, I have this evidence, this evidence, this evidence. And the prosecutor says, whoa, I'm the one who's going to stand there. What you are saying, I cannot be able to prove. So I have learned to just consume a humble pie when it comes to certain opinions about the value of specific evidence.
So you say, between the two of you, you were satisfied that he knew or would have known that those were not final reports, the earlier ones?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And with regard to this one, is there anything that would have told him whether this one was final or not final, when he, by looking at it or reading it, leaving out whatever the two of you may have discussed?
The issue is that the previous report, I'm not sure of the one shortly before this one.
Yes.
But we worked on this report and we had been working on it as a draft.
You mean the two of you, Advocate Mosing? Or no, yourself and your partner?
I was also with Colonel Mukangwe.
Yes, yeah, your partner in investigation, or a member of your team.
The one was from Crime Intelligence, who am
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is that the one you are not supposed to?
That's correct.
That's the one you are supposed to keep secret.
That's correct.
Okay. Yes. So the two of you had been working on it.
The three of us.
Yeah. Who is the third?
It's Advocate
Mosing.
and it's Colonel Mukangwe.
Yeah.
And one time, I think Advocate Billy Mweleti
Okay.
was also part of that because he would attend. He was not regular in our meetings.
Was he from the NPA too?
That's correct.
Okay. So are you saying, therefore, that this first report was the product of the four of you working together, but one of you that you have just mentioned wasn't regular, but the three of you were regular?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Was it usual for you to prepare an Untitled Report together with the NPA?
It wasn't, because at the time when I started to open up fully to Mr. Sisoko and also spoke to McBride, I still remember McBride saying to me, IPID makes a recommendation to NPA and not with NPA. So, and I found that it was a valid point. It was a valid point. But I think sometimes it becomes so, you become comfortable that the lines are blurred. You can't really see, you talk, you laugh, you share lunch there. It doesn't become like something that protocols.
You end up like you are a team.
That's correct.
Okay.
And could you tell the chair how senior an advocate was, Advocate Mosing?
When I was introduced to him, I was told that he is the head of special operation. Now, that part told me that I was not dealing with a just ordinary prosecutor. I was dealing with somebody very, very, very senior. To such an extent that even an opportunity to throw an opinion, I will have an internal assessment of that. To say, I don't want to make myself a stupid person here. Will it be right to ask this question? Because I was not dealing with a junior.
Yes, okay.
That's correct.
And in the course of your discussions about your report and being told, amend this, add this, change, you said in manuscript, was it made clear to you what your ultimate recommendation should be?
It was, because it was not only to deal with the body of the report, it went down to the recommendation.
And what were you told when you were dealing with that? What was
The
discussed?
evidence that we're discussing was the issue of general dramat on number of aspects that I've already alluded to, which includes the statement of Madilonga, the CI member statements, as well as the progress or success reports. Now, when it came to the issue of General Sevilla, it was basically the issue of witness statements. And there was also an issue that, because I did a 205, when we checked, we found that one of the person who was doing operation contacted, I think there were a number of calls, but they were not quite frequent as such, but there were a number of contacts between General Sevilla with that colonel. And during our discussion, it was indicated that it means that he was reporting progress of how they were arresting the Zimbabwean national.
So if you go to the end of your report at page 101 of the bundle, you'll see that the recommendation there from you is based on the available evidence. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate recommends that Lieutenant General Dramat, Major General Sabia, Lieutenant Colonel Maluleka, Constable Redebe, Captain Nkosi, and Warrant Officer Mako be charged criminally for 1, kidnapping, and 2, defeating the ends of justice, and 3, assault and theft, only applicable to Captain Maluleka, Warrant Officer Mako, and Constable Redibi, and Captain Nkosi. Was that your recommendation?
That's correct.
And is that your signature on that report?
That's correct.
And could you explain to the chair, why did you sign this report?
I'm sorry, what did you?
I asked, why did he sign this report?
Oh, okay.
During December, it was the time when I was subjected to a lot of pressure that he wanted the report and he wanted the docket.
Sorry, who is he?
Advocate Musing.
Yes.
And I kept on giving excuses to say, but they were valid excuses because I was preoccupied in the office. Number one, it was an issue of saying I was busy with an unrest at Ralela, and I had to help my office to meet the strategic objectives. Now, the biggest challenge was that one time I felt I need to give this person what he wanted, even though the things were not really complete. Because I thought he just wanted, probably what is there is enough for him to take a decision. And then I indicated to him that I have a problem with the report because I was not really signing this report. And I said it needs to be signed by the head of the department. So at that time, Ms. Kukimbeki was no longer coming to the office. As I've already alluded earlier, she sent a message through her PA that she was only able to sign financial-related documents. Now, I had a problem to say, what do I do now? I asked him, and he said, no, you can sign the report and send it. Then I signed the report and sent to him. But that part, I could not have a full recollection of it.
Signing part.
The signing of the report. On the reason that there were a lot of reports that I sent to that exchanged hands between me and him. And also, when I was queried about the report by Mr. Sissoko and McBride, it was not about whether I sent the report to NPA. That was clear that I sent the report. But it was whether I signed the report. And that was in 2015 when they were asking those questions, whether there was a report. Now, the issue there was that when I went to collect the docket from Advocate Fanzay, we perused that docket together. There was no report. But if the report was there, it could have, in fact, they wouldn't have asked the question because they would have found it when we were doing the review of that evidence and also preparing the final report.
So you say that when you fetched the docket, and we're going to deal with the sequence later, you found that this, what we are calling the first report, wasn't in the docket.
That's correct.
What was in the docket by way of report?
I'm sorry, is that now, are you at a stage when you are dealing with the second report now?
No.
It's still this report?
Yes.
Okay.
What was in the docket, when we perused the docket, we found...
This is now before compiling the first report or when the first report was ready?
Okay.
What was the stage when
I think let me put it in perspective and
Yes.
start from where it started first.
I'm trying to keep my eye on the times and the time frames.
Let me start where things started first. Now, after the submission of the docket and the report, then I started getting evidence.
And when you say end the report, you mean end the first report?
The first report,
Yeah.
end the report. I said end the report. I mean the first report.
Yes, okay.
Now, what happened was that, in fact, when I sent that report, I was constantly calling the expert who was analyzing the cell phone records of General Sevilla. And he told me that he was doing a business of water, setting plants for water, Botswana and a number of countries. Then he told me that he was busy in a project. He could not have time to finish, but now he's done. He has done the plotting, and unfortunately he had bad news for me. And he said, General Sevilla was not at 4 ways as alleged by witnesses. And he was not at deep slot as alleged by witnesses. Now, when I got that information, the report had already gone. But I just felt, let me send something to Mr. Sissoko, because I used to send report for him to take it to Secretariat for update. Now, I did another report, and I sent an email on the 23rd The report for Advocate Musing was dispatched on the 22nd. On the 23rd, the following day, I did a report that had changed in recommendation. It says, I still recommended General Dramat, but when I came to General Sevilla,
Or you still recommended that that General Dramat be charged?
yes.
Yeah.
But with General Sevilla, I said, I do not recommend any criminal charges against General Sevilla because the cell phone records has shown that he was not at the scene. That is how I put it. Now, that report, I just sent it. I left like that. Now, there was a time I got now the response of General Sevilla. He sent his warning statement. He sent the warning statement through the PA. I got it. There was an exchange of hand between the Mr. Sissoko and the PA on that report, and it ended up coming to me. Then when I got that report, I then sent it to Advocate Musing to show I have the new evidence. And that time, I had already known about the cell phone records. Now, when I sent those responses, he responded to me on an email dated 28 February 2014. It was just shortly after a month after I sent the first report to say that I've acquired this evidence. And he said, the docket is not with him, it's in Gauteng. But I got an indication that it was with Advocate Van Sale in Gauteng. Then I took that email as if saying to me, now I need to go and collect this docket so that I can attach the evidence. McBride, according to my understanding, then started working on the 3rd, somewhere there, on the 3rd of March. And then I was called, I think it was on the 5th, to brief him on high-profile cases. So in the department, we had 2 main high-profile cases. It was the rendition case, as well as the Ketomena case, which I investigated earlier, but it was then handed over to a director from Mpumalanga, Glenn Engers. So when we briefed him, we were together. On the 5th, he was the one who started. He briefed him about Ketomena. It took some time, but I was just listening. Then my opportunity came. Then I briefed him about the rendition investigation. But because I was the second in terms of briefing, I could not finish. And he said, we will meet the following day. That was on the 6th. Now, during the briefing, I remember Mr. Sissoko was there. The issue of not involving him, I indicated that. The issue of collaboration with the CI official, Colonel Mukango, I indicated that. Now, I still remember vividly when it comes to the issue of excluding Mr. Sissoko, that Mr. McBride says, if in this department I give you this instruction, please refuse. And I did not say anything, I just looked at him on the basis that when you are a subordination, sometimes there is a gray line because you look at what I'm being told to do. Does it constitute misconduct or contravention or any policy of the department? There are things that you will look at and say, this is not right, there's something not right.
You mean when you get given an instruction, sometimes you listen to or look at the instruction and say, this instruction is not right.
That's correct.
It's unlawful, it's illegal, or it might be contrary to the policies of the organization. And if I were to do it, I may be committing misconduct. Is that what you're talking about?
What I'm saying is that there are some instructions that may not be right, but not necessarily unlawful.
Okay.
So
like ethically.
that's correct. Because I just looked at him to say, if then you tell me not to report there, and you're the head of the department, your instruction may not sound right, but may not be necessarily unlawful.
So when he said, if I give you that instruction, you must refuse, what instruction was he talking about?
To exclude or to sideline the national head of investigation.
Or was that, did he say that in reaction to you telling him that Mrs. Mbeki had asked you to exclude Mr. Sissogo from the investigation?
That's correct.
Yes, okay. Before you proceed, let's go back to the first report. Now, when you sent it to the NPA, would you have sent it together with the docket, as it were, whatever files that you would call the docket, with all the statements that you have collected from various witnesses and other evidence?
In fact, it's a policy requirement that you can't send a docket, a report without a docket. That report must accompany the docket.
And that's what you did?
That's correct.
So, okay, and you may have said something about this earlier, or even yesterday. A report such as the types of reports that IPET personnel or investigators would send to the NPA, which had recommendations, always went with the statements, or maybe sometimes the statements would already be with the NPA and the report would just be to be added to the docket.
What is required is that you take both together, which means it's the copies of the docket or the actual docket together with the report. It is in the recommendation to SAPS that you will make copies of the docket and then put a report on top and then send it to SAPS for them to initiate disciplinary steps.
Yes, and whoever has to make a decision at the NPA about whether to prosecute or not to prosecute, on what would they need to base their decision?
They need to base their decision on a docket. In fact, I've spoken with a number of prosecutors saying that we don't even read sometimes the report that you send. Some of them indicated that it may help me only to check this statement, where is it filed in the docket? Then they will be able to navigate that. That's why, Chairperson, when I'm seated here, really my heart goes out. That something which was not supposed to be anything to be concerned about became a big deal that interfered with my career, that landed me in the cell. So it is something that I haven't yet got even a concrete answer about it.
Well, that's why I asked these questions, and I've been asking them. I asked them with Mr. Sissoko, I asked them with Mr. McBride, because I'm trying to understand what it is really that was a problem. But also I'm trying to understand whether there is something that I don't understand in what you, Mr. Sissoko, and Mr. McBride have been telling me that may make me think that the NPA and Workmen's and maybe the minister were abusing their powers when maybe there was something, maybe I just don't see it. So that's why I keep on asking these questions, because I'm trying to understand whether really we could be dealing here with a situation where certain people were just abusing their powers. You people had absolutely done nothing wrong. Or whether maybe there was something wrong, I just don't see it. That's why I keep on asking these questions.
Now, the chairperson, the challenge with this case is that both reports were in the hands of NPA. Now, I still remember the charges. They said I deleted the January report, which is the first report. I deleted it. There's something that was deleted in the report. That report, if they give you a copy, there was nothing deleted. The fact is that it was not similar in everything with the second report.
There were certain things which you could find in the first report which you would not find in the second report.
That's correct.
But it did not mean they were deleted from the first report.
That's correct.
These were two separate reports.
That's correct.
But now, the report were constituted, did the reports that you prepared as IPID personnel or investigators, including the ones that we are dealing with here, did they constitute the investigator's summary or the investigator's understanding of what the evidence is that is to be found in the statements? And to the extent that the investigator made a recommendation, that was just his opinion as he sees the evidence.
That's correct. The report itself, it's after summarizing or taking synopsis from each and every statement. You go down there and express your view.
Yes.
If probably, because you may find that some investigator did not do law, they just have extensive experience. You get sometimes an investigator analyzing in such a way that the defense will not even argue, will laugh at you.
Yes.
Because it doesn't make sense. But we allow that because it was a policy requirement to say, we do this report, just analyze there. It was like a game for us to say how we analyze. It had no bearing on the decision of SAPS.
Did it have
on the decision of DPP?
Now, maybe just to get this, you yourself, you are not a lawyer, you don't have a legal background, or you do have some legal background?
I did law courses, and But I cannot really be compared with a
Yes.
practicing lawyer.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But for your position, you don't necessarily require to have a law degree.
No,
Or
they-
at that time, what the position that you had at the time?
They required either, it depends.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement, it's that
You must have a degree.
you need to have knowledge of the criminal law. You may have a degree in investigation
Yes.
and honors.
Yes.
But what happens is that you apply law on your level.
On your level.
On your level.
Yes.
For
yes.
example, at a provincial level, most of reports, they come to me. And then I will take these reports and check them. And during those days, because we used to analyze, I will tell the investigator, oh, here,
This is superficial
yeah,
analysis.
this
yeah.
one.
Go
We
and
will
do
talk
more
and laugh
work.
about it.
Yes.
And he said, no, I feel that we need to put it there.
Yes. Yes.
Then, because I'm the head of the office, I will end up telling him what to put
Need to
there.
put in, yeah.
Yeah.
But the requirement that you should put in the reports, where did that requirement come from? Was it an IPAD requirement? Was it an NPA requirement? Was it a requirement that came from a policy document? Did it come from a regulation? Did it come from an act of parliament? Where did that come from? Or was
Okay.
it just a practice?
Fortunately, Chairperson, I was involved in the process of the formation of IPID Act itself. And I did a number of public engagements
On the bill.
on the bill itself. Now, the issue of the recommendation, it was already a practice that we send a docket together with a report, and then you make recommendation. Now, in terms of the Act talks about two types of recommendation. The recommendation to SAPS for disciplinary steps. The recommendation to NPA for them to take the decision on that docket. But on SAPS, it's where there's some level of obligation on the side of SAP, because it indicates that upon receipt of IPID recommendation, they need to initiate departmental process.
There is some kind of expectation that they must give effect or implement the recommendation.
That's correct. But
That is the SAPS.
SAPS.
Yes,
But that obligation is not there in the
in the NPA.
NPA.
Yes.
Hence, there is an issue now that when we send our recommendation, we recommend that you take decision.
Yes, yes.
It is still recommendation.
So in other words, what you are telling me is, as far as the NPA is concerned, they were not obliged to even look at your recommendation or even look at the reports. Is that right? They could look at it if they wanted to. They could disregard it and just look at the statements in the docket and make their decision. And if they didn't look at it, you would have no cause to complain because they were not bound by your opinions.
Chairperson, what you are saying now, it's what was said in the statement of a person whom I collected this rendition docket from. To say I'm not bound by this report. Yet, when I collected, I was not yet charged. Despite his statement, I was charged.
Is that now Advocate Mosing
Advocate Van Zyl.
van Zyl, he being from the NPA as well?
That's correct.
So, but basically we're going back to saying these reports really had no legal status. You might or might not be able to answer that. But they had no legal status with the NPA. They couldn't make a decision and say it's because the IPED investigator said so. They would have to base their decisions on the statements in the docket.
That's correct, Chairperson. I can say that they do not have legal status. However, what we use only statistical information to say how many recommendations, because the recommendation referred, it means docket referred.
Yes. So now you see, it raises this question again of why was such a big fight? Why did such a big fight get initiated? Because you gave them an opinion of what you thought in the first report, and later gave them an opinion that was different from the first opinion. Why did it matter for purposes of their decision?
Chairperson, I think this was an issue of being hit by whatever object is available for a person who wants to deal with you. If there was something else, I think they would have used that. But it was an object of convenience that they used this report to put us in the cell. They used these reports to make sure that I'm dismissed and stayed for almost 2 years without a job.
Just because you gave an opinion.
That's correct.
In one way, and then you gave another opinion in a different way, and you had your reasons for the different opinions, and they were not bound by your opinions. They could have said he's mad, and then just make their own decision.
That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Do you want to
I think
continue?
let's at 5 o'clock we'll decide. Just continue.
Thank you. I want to unpack what you've been saying, because we can show through the documentation the sequence of events and how your views changed from your first report, your amended report, and then what's called the second report. Now, it's important also that the criticism, and you must tell me if I'm right, was between the difference between the first report and the second report. There was no criticism of or comparison between your amended first report, because you amended the first report because you said after you got the cell phone records, you changed the recommendation that General Sabia be charged, because it proved that what the witnesses were saying wasn't true. But the two reports that you were charged about was the first and the second. The amended report wasn't referred to. Am I correct in that regard?
That's correct.
Now,
I'm sorry. When you refer to the amended report, are you referring to the report to which I understood you to refer earlier, where you said after you had submitted what we call the first report, there was another report that you submitted? I don't know if you said it was 1 page, but you submitted another report before what we call the second report. Is my understanding correct?
That's correct. It was where I made amendment, but that amendment was not made in a full report, but only on the recommendation.
Yes, was it one page?
No,
It was not the,
it was complete report.
it was a complete. And that is the one where you say you recommended that General Sibiya should not be charged.
That's correct.
But you stayed with the recommendation that General Dramat be charged.
That's correct.
So in other words, you filed a number of reports earlier where you made no recommendations.
I made one between the first and what is called the second.
Yes, no. I'm talking about before the first report.
That's
you
correct.
You made a number you submitted a number of reports.
That's correct.
But in those reports, there was no recommendation.
There was a recommendation.
Yes, relating to the two, General Sibiya and General Dramat.
That's correct.
And what were the recommendations in regard to
It was a
them?
recommendation that I was recommending that they should be charged.
Yes, okay. Was that in a number of reports or only one of the earlier reports that you talked about, or you can't remember?
Depending on the issue that when we say number of reports,
Yes.
it's how many times I've given to
Yeah,
Advocate Musing or Colonel Mukangwe.
yes.
But however, most of the time when I would give him, the recommendation would sometimes remain like that, but I put statement in the middle.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. So, but then we come to the report that we have called the first report. In that first report, your recommendation is both General Sibiya and General Dramat should be charged.
That's correct.
And then you say, soon after you had submitted that first report, there was another report that you submitted, and that report changed, was different in terms of recommendations to the first one.
That's correct.
And it was different in this respect that in regard to General Sibiya, you now said he should not be charged, but with regard to General Dramat, you remained with the recommendation that he should be charged.
That's correct.
And then there was what we call the second report, but maybe we should be calling it the third report. But
That's
I
correct.
don't want to confuse the record. What we call the second report. And in the second report, you then changed your mind about General Dramat as well in terms of your recommendation. And then in the second report, you took the view that even General Dramat should not be charged.
That's correct.
And when you were being confronted with discrepancies between the first report and the second report, and I think that's the question that Ms. Wenzel was putting, nobody was talking about the amended report, the one that was between the two reports,
That's correct.
where already you had changed your mind about, with regard to the recommendation relating to General Sibiya. You had changed your mind about that one in
That's
the
correct.
amended one, but you had not changed your mind in regard to the recommendation relating to General Dramat.
That's correct.
And when it came to the second report, you had changed your mind about both of them.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Let's, how much time do you estimate we will need to finish his evidence?
I think probably about 2 hours. Yes, Chair.
Okay. So, if we were to go for another hour, we would then at least reduce his time on the stand tomorrow to at least an hour, if your estimate is correct.
Yes, if my estimate is correct.
Yes. I need to have a meeting about, among other things, the program for next week. And I need that meeting should be very short. And I'm tempted to say, because both of you said we could go up to 6, I'm tempted to say I should adjourn for about 15 or so minutes, deal with that issue, and then come back and we continue for about an hour, up to 6 o'clock or just after 6. And so that we then remain with maybe 1 hour with him for tomorrow.
Yes, that's convenient.
Mr. Kuba, that would still be fine with you?
It's okay, Chairperson.
Yes. Okay, all right. We are going to adjourn then for a very short time, up to 5:15, and then we'll resume. We adjourn.
All rise.
Okay, let's continue. We have a job to do. Yes, thank you. Switch on your mic.
I beg your pardon. Before we leave the issue of the first report, you said that
I think you might be too far from your mic.
you said
Yes.
that your investigation wasn't complete at the stage that you submitted the first report. Could you tell the chair what was outstanding?
There were a number of things that were outstanding. It was a warning statement of General Sevilla and General Dramat, the analysis of the cell phone record for General Sevilla.
And did you tell Advocate Musing that these things were still outstanding?
Yes, I did.
And what was his attitude?
He said, despite the outstanding information, I needed to submit the docket with the report.
That is still in relation to the first report.
That's correct.
Okay.
So,
And he knew that you, or rather, let me ask this question. As at that time, when you submitted your first report, did you intend to make efforts to get those statements?
That's correct. I continue with the investigation.
Yes. And did he know that, Mr. Advocate Musing?
Yes, he did.
And obviously, if he knew that you were going to continue with the investigation, he would know that whatever you got from the investigation would have to be factored into, would have to be put into the docket.
That's correct.
Did he know exactly what else you were going to be looking into as part of your investigation, other than trying to obtain the statement from General, did you say General Sbia and General Dramat?
That's correct. He knew that the cell phone analysis, because he was the one who gave me instruction to get an expert who would analyze the location of the two generals when they received and made calls.
But at the stage at which you submitted the first report, were there any cell phone records relating to the two generals that were there in the docket and that had been analyzed already?
They were not yet analyzed because they use something that we call coordinates. These are numbers. You may find there's 4 or 5 numbers, and they will indicate the name of the tower, but the name of the tower will not exactly tell you where, because it may be named, probably a name of a person. You may not know that it was in. But when we discussed, we had an agreement to say, let's get these coordinates to be plotted on a Google map so that we can know exactly where was this person standing when he received or made a call.
So there were cell phone records in the docket at the time you submitted the first report, but those cell phone records had not yet been analyzed.
That's correct.
And that can make a big difference.
That's correct.
Okay.
thank you. Now, you've testified that after you received these cell phone records, they showed that Mr. General Sabia could not have been at the place where the witnesses had placed him. And so it disproved what the witnesses had said.
That's correct.
And
I'm sorry. Is it the analysis of the cell phone records that revealed that? In other words, not just the records, but the analysis or the records themselves also disproved without the analysis.
If the record clearly disapproved that, there would have not been a need to analyze them.
Oh, okay. So from the records which were in the docket, from the cell phone records that were in the docket, those records did not disprove what the witnesses had said.
That's correct.
And that gave rise to the need for the records to be analyzed so as to establish exactly where the two persons were.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I may wish to add there, because there was a time when we went through the record together, and we got some funny names in terms of towers. And I still remember Advocate was saying, this one seems to be where this, but it was all about guesswork.
Yes.
And that's where he said, Mr. Kuba, get this thing analyzed by the expert.
So, apart from the fact that you yourself may have been intending that there should be an analysis of the cell phone records, he himself told you to please get the records analyzed.
It was his idea.
It was his idea.
That's correct.
Okay.
so now, once you received this information, you changed your recommendation that General Sabia should be charged. And you produced what I've referred to as...
I think you need to be careful about the terminology. You know, when you say he changed his recommendation,
Yes.
it could mean he changed his view about the recommendation, but it also could mean he physically changed a recommendation that had not been made.
I appreciate it,
Yes.
Chair, and that is an important distinction. What I meant is that you, in essence, changed your mind or changed your view. You didn't take the report and amend the first report physically. You produced a new report with it that had a different conclusion.
That's correct.
So if you have a look at page 104 of the bundle, you'll see that this is an email from you dated the 23rd of January 2014 to Mr. Sissoko, and it says Deep Sleuth Renditions Case Report. So did you send this report to Mr. Sissoko?
That's correct.
And why did you send it to him?
Because I wanted him to deliver it to the Secretary of Police, as he used to do for me.
So if we have a look at...
Which one is this report? Is it the first report? Is it the amended report? Is it the second report?
Is this the amended report?
That is the amended between the first and the second.
Okay, yeah, I think let's call it the amended report, because if we change and say it's the second report as it should have been said,
Yes.
should have been labeled, it would cause confusion. So we have the first report, the amended report, and the second report.
And yes, Chair, and the reason that the terminology was used is because in the subsequent charges and disciplinary proceedings, it was the distinction between what was called a first report and a second report. So it was in that context
Yes.
that
Okay.
terminology was used.
Yes, okay.
So if we have a look at page 129 of the bundle, it says recommendation, and then it's page 130 now reads, based on the available evidence, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate recommends that General Dramat, Lieutenant Colonel Maluleka, Constable Radebe, Captain S.E. Nkosi, and Warrant Officer McCoe be charged criminally of, again, kidnapping, defeating the ends of justice, assault, and theft, only applicable to Captain Maluleka, Warrant Officer McCoe, Constable Radebe, and Captain Nkosi. Then in bracket, it says, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate cannot recommend any criminal charge against Mayor General Sabia because the witnesses' versions are not corroborated by other evidence that he was at the crime scene, e.g. cell phone records. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I had a look at some stage, either last night or this morning, at the workman's report. And I may be mistaken, but I think somewhere it may be saying something to the effect that it is not true that there were no cell phone. There was no cell phone record analysis at the time of submitting the first report. Because it was there. But it may be that it doesn't say that. Maybe it says, you said to them, that is workmen's, you changed your view because earlier on when you submitted the first report, there were no cell phone records. The investigation had to continue because you wanted to obtain cell phone records. Now, you may have a better recollection than I have of what they say, but based on what you are saying, to the extent that they may be saying part of the reason why the investigation was continuing was that you wanted to obtain cell phone records, then they must have misunderstood, because your evidence is the cell phone records were there. What was not there was the analysis, and the further investigation was going to include obtaining an analysis of cell phone records that were already there.
I think they misunderstood me because cell phone records were there. The problem we had was to understand where these generals were in terms of exact location. And I still remember when I spoke to the expert, I even requested to say, just show me even the picture. To say this person was standing here. And he did that and indicated that if there is any variance from what he indicated and where the person was standing, would be only 10 meters. Now, if they say that there was no cell phone record, why would I then, I don't think even Advocate Musing would have accepted that without cell phone record. The issue that we could not analyze them. Yeah.
But your own understanding of what they say in this context, is it more or less along my own understanding as well, or how is your understanding? Because I think somewhere they seem to say they don't believe you with regard to something relating to the records. I just can't remember whether they say you said part of the reason why the investigation still had to continue was because you had to obtain cell phone records, and then they say, but the cell phone records were already there, or whether they say you said you were going to get analysis, and they say no, but the analysis was there. I can't remember that distinction. Do you have any particular recollection of what they say in criticizing your evidence?
Chairperson, I think I need to put the report of Versmans in perspective, because they interviewed me 3 times. And the first day, I still remember, because we had already discussed with Mr. Sissoko to say, when we arrive there, we need to ask whether this thing is going to be used for departmental or for criminal. So unfortunately, I did not record, but I indicated to them, and they gave me the same assurance they gave to Mr. Sissoko. Now, when I was telling them exactly what happened, what they used to say to do, any information that will show that I was towing the line in terms of this investigation, they would not really allow that. I still remember, I even said, I have an email that shows that I requested this docket. They say it's not necessary. And that is where I realized that this thing is one-sided. Because these 3 interviews was not basically that we were starting very late and that they could not finish. Sometimes they will start in the morning and they say, we are done with you. Then I left. Probably they sat down and said, no, we can't really hook this guy. How do we change the questions? Now I went back again. When I went back, I found that they were asking these similar questions, but trying to trick me there and there. There was one time I was so tired. I was so tired. And I wanted to know, what is that they really need? Because I could show, even this report, they were not interested. They were not interested in things that they wanted a situation. Why they were pressurizing me is that, did McBride force you to change the report? Then I said to them, I did statement analysis. McBride was not yet appointed. I then did there was cell phone analysis which was done, and I sent email requesting the docket. McBride was not yet employed. Because they were pushing me to a point to say, you need to say you were forced by McBride. And it was not true. If really I was forced, I would say it the same way and say I was forced.
Okay, I asked you about the workman's report. We'll get there some later or tomorrow.
Yes.
But I asked because of some connection that I was seeing. Please continue.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. So now, after you had submitted the first report, what is now referred to as the amended report, you say in your statement in paragraph 72 on page 22 that on the 26th of February 2014, General Sabia responded to the questions which you had sent to him. Was this his warning statement?
That's correct.
And it was sent to Mr. Sissoko on the 27th of February 2014, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then what did you do with this information?
I forwarded it to Advocate Musing.
And if we have a look at page 100, And in fact, it's probably best to look at page 134 of the bundle. And
What page?
134, Chair.
Okay.
And you'll see at the bottom half of the page is an email from you dated the 28th of February 2014 to Anthony Musing, and subject forward email response to questions posed by IPID Major General Shadrach Sabia. Is that the email in which you forwarded the responses to Advocate Musing?
That's correct.
And he then responded to you on the same day and said, "Dear Mr. Kuba, in light of the fact that the matter has been referred to the DPP of South Gauteng for decision, you are requested to file this evidence in the docket, which is presently with the DPP SG, and in future forward any additional evidence or other matters directly with him. Kind regards." So what did you understand from this?
I understood that I could access or get the docket from the person who was having the docket.
And did you understand you would then update that docket with this evidence?
That's correct.
Now, could you explain to the Chair how it came about that what is now called the second report, that was signed by, I think, Mr. Sissoko and Mr. McBride, came about?
After I did a briefing with Mr. McBride as well as Mr. Sissoko,
Yes.
then I indicated the email which was sent by Advocate Musing. And then he permitted me to go and collect the docket because I had to attach the evidence. And then that time, I still remember, I indicated that this time you need to involve Mr. Sissoko. So I managed to get the docket,
Now,
and I've already indicated what was in the docket.
so let's just stop there for a minute. Who went with you to get the docket?
It was Glenn Engers,
And who did you get the docket from?
Advocate Van Zyl.
And why did Advocate Van Zyl now have the docket as opposed to Advocate Musing?
Seemingly, it was transferred to Advocate Van Zyl, but all along I was under impression that Advocate Musing was going to prosecute the case.
So, if you have regard to page 136, what is that? Sorry, are you there? No?
Page
136.
136.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you said 126.
Oh.
Okay.
What is this document?
136.
Oh, sorry, I thought you
this
were there.
document is a letter. It was sent to Advocate Chauke by Advocate Musing. So this letter was part of the docket. When I went to collect the docket, Advocate Van Zyl took the copy of this letter and he scribbled it so that I could sign acknowledging the docket. So the docket was in terms of the ACT files, as I indicated earlier. So he indicated that there were 6 ACT lever files, 1 thin file. It was handed to Mr. Kuba from IPID. And it indicated that I was accompanied by Glenn Engers. He even wrote the cell phone number there, and I signed for it.
Now, when you had the docket and perused the contents, you indicated earlier that your first report wasn't in the docket. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what report was in the docket?
It was Advocate Musing's report.
And was there a recommendation from Advocate Musing?
That's correct.
And do you remember what that recommendation was?
The recommendation was to the effect that he was recommending that General Dramad be charged, but he could not recommend that General Sibia be charged. He only recommended General Dramad.
So, at that stage, when you took the docket as reflected in the document at page 136, this was after you had submitted the first report.
That's correct.
Was it also after you had submitted the amended report? Or was it before you submitted the amended report?
The amended report was already submitted, but not to
NPA?
NPA. It was submitted to Mr. Sissoko.
Or,
But what I may not remember what really happened, but knowing that I was updating Advocate Musing in everything, I think I told him that I spoke with the expert and he says, this person was not there.
oh, so his decision to recommend, or his recommendation that General Sibia should not be charged, the fact that that is in line with your amended report might be because you told him even before he got the amended report.
Yes, because when I gave him when I got the information, I got it telephonically from the expert. What I am suspecting is that I think I had spoken with him, but I cannot really precisely remember.
Yes.
I'm drawing that conclusion on the basis that I would tell him of everything which was taken with investigation. And with this type of discovery, for me it was serious that warranted me to phone him.
So it would be unlikely that you would delay telling him once you knew it. Okay. So, the 14th of February 2014, as reflected in the document at page 136, by that time, had General Dramad's statement and General Sibia's statement been sent to Advocate Musing?
I had already received those documents, if I remember well, yeah.
But had you sent them to Advocate Musing or not? Or are you not able to remember?
What I remember is when I sent the statement of General Sibia, but I cannot remember in terms of
The dates?
no, I sent it on the 27th in terms of
27 February.
February. When I
Yes.
went there, I had already sent, when I went to collect the docket, I had already sent him the copy of the warning statement.
This letter, I'm sorry, I think I may have misunderstood something. the memorandum at page 136 is dated 14 February 2014, but that's not the date when you saw it. You saw it much later.
Yes, I saw it on the,
There is 18 June there and 27 June. I say 18/6, 27/6. And then there is 7 March 2014 at the bottom, just under the cell phone number of Mr. Glenn Angus. There is 13 June somewhere on the side.
I can be able to talk about these dates,
Yes.
some of them. For example, the 7 March 2014 was when I collected the docket.
Yes,
That's why there are signatures there.
yes.
And also, next to my signature, there is the same date, which is
where is-
2014-03-07.
Yes.
Because that
Or
is,
is that your signature
that's my signature.
next to, just below 7 March 2014, that is under the cell number of Mr. Angus? The signature at the extreme right bottom of the page. Whose signature is that one?
That is Glenn Angus who was accompanying me.
And where is your signature? I'm trying to see your one.
It's
Is
the
it-
one that is Cuba with fine print, small one. The one just under 7 March 2014.
Oh, you know, it looks like somebody had written something and crossed it out. Okay, but was the 7th of March 2014 the first time that you saw this document?
That's correct.
Okay. Was it on that day that you also saw or found out that Advocate Mosing had made a recommendation that General Dramat should be charged?
That's correct.
Okay. But in terms of sending the General Dramat and General Sbia's statements to Advocate Mosing, you said you think you sent them on the 27th, but you didn't say which month.
It was February
27th February.
2014.
Okay. And do you remember, in case it's not here, but if it's here, Ms. Wenzel will tell me, the document which contained Mr. Mosing's recommendation that General Dramat be charged, do you remember what date it was dated?
I can't remember.
You can't remember? Okay, all right. Is it here?
No, it isn't.
Because an important aspect is whether the decision that he should be charged was taken after his statement has been received and studied or not.
Yes, Chair, we'll try and see if we can locate that. But, Chair, if we do have regard to page 134 again, you can see that the response to the questions posed by General Shabir were forwarded on the 28th. And then, if you have regard to the document at page 136.
I'm sorry, at 134, what were you drawing to my attention?
So if you look at the second half of the document, you'll see the first email dated the 28th of February 2014, and you see the subject says forward emailing response to questions posed by IPID,
Yes.
Major General Shadrach Mitsibia.
Yes.
So that's when Advocate Masing gets this and then tells him, you need to file this evidence in the docket, and I don't have the docket anymore, so you need to go to the DPP of South Gauteng for decision.
Yes.
Then if we have a look at HIK 136, you'll remember that the testimony was from Mr. Kuba that Advocate Van Zyl had the docket, and he made them sign for all the files. So you'll see there it says 6 lever arch files and 1 thin file, handed to Kuba from IPID, his phone number, accompanied by Glenn Angus, his cell phone number, the date, and he made them both sign. So that is certainly the date that that docket was collected, which is after the email was sent. But what is important is that if you look at the date on page 136, when the docket was forwarded, that was the 14th of February 2014. So at that stage, he wouldn't have had the warning statement from Sabia.
Oh, so you say he forwarded the docket to the DPP on the 14th of February, and one would expect that that's when one would expect that the document containing his recommendation would have been contained in the docket as well.
Yes.
And that was way before the statement from Gerald Sabia and Gerald Dramat, or Gerald Sabia.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
And so that, if that is correct, then it
Yes.
means that
He made the decision before he could see the statements of the Gerald Sabia.
so it must mean that he couldn't have made it on the basis of what General Sabia
Yes.
said, but it probably was as a result of the cell phone records.
Yes, yes. Okay. Are you saying it was on the basis of the cell phone records as opposed to the analysis of cell phone records?
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean the analysis of the
Yeah.
cell phone records, I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. And this is a situation where he knew, based on what Mr. Kuba has testified, he knew that Mr. Kuba was still trying to get statements from General Sabia and General Dramat. So he makes a decision that General Dramat must be prosecuted before hearing what he has to say in his statement.
It would appear that because it doesn't look like General Dramat's final warning statement was forwarded to him.
Yeah. Okay.
Chair, is it
Thank
a
you.
convenient time to adjourn, or? do you
Oh,
want
I
to-
didn't realize we are already at 2 minutes to 6. No, I think we need to adjourn now. I think I'm probably not the only one who is getting tired. I don't know if we made as much progress as we hoped to make after the 5 o'clock break. I guess it doesn't matter much if I say let's go another 10 minutes to make it an hour.
I'm in Chair's hands.
No, I think that's fine. Let's adjourn. It does look like, so maybe tomorrow we should start at 9:30.
Yes, Chair.
Then maybe we could go up to 10:30. I see that with regard to Colonel Naidu, in the program for next week,
Yes.
there is much space for him. There is space, I think, for about 3 days, except that on Tuesday, Reverend Chikane is also put in there. But I don't want Colonel Naidu's evidence to be interrupted by another witness's evidence. We would need to finish with him. So it may be that there is not much need to start too early than 9:30 tomorrow.
Chair, sorry, if I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. Are you proposing that Colonel Naidu would start tomorrow and continue on Monday, or he would only continue on Wednesday? He would only start on Wednesday?
No, what I'm saying is remember that earlier on you said that you thought that on Monday you would be Saturday is a day when he could continue.
Yes.
If we don't finish tomorrow, which you didn't think would happen.
Yes,
But I said I was still going to look at the program.
yes.
So I'm simply saying, once we have finished with Mr. Kuba tomorrow, we can start with Colonel Naidu, and then we will continue on Monday. We can continue on Monday with him. And if we don't finish on Monday with him, we can continue on Tuesday also, and let Reverend Chikane only start his evidence after we've finished with him, with Colonel Naidu.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I've asked that Reverend Chikane be alerted to the fact that if by Monday afternoon we have not finished with Colonel Naidu, then on Tuesday morning would continue with him and only start his evidence after we're finished with Colonel Naidu.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a sensible solution.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Kuba, tomorrow you would be fine with starting at 9:30?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we are going to adjourn at this stage, and then tomorrow we will continue at 9:30. We adjourn.
All rise.